Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with Waylon Lewis, coming to you live from Hotel Elephant, my kind of cozy old home in Boulder, Colorado, on the University Hill. And I'm honored to be here today with Julia Herz,
Yes, sir.
opposite of his, no
Well
T.
done. That's right, no T.
Although you are the heir to the multi-billion-dollar Hertz
I am not.
fortune.
I am not.
Damn. All right, let's cut this. I thought I was connecting with some rich folk for my future gubernatorial campaign. So we're here to talk about mindfulness in terms of beer, in terms of the whole craft brewers movement, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, great opportunity. Big opportunity.
What, mindfulness? And
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole evolution of beer. The beverage itself has gone through an evolution, and we can go into all the explanation. I mean, 1980s, we were at a low point, not even 100 brewing companies. Today we have 2,800, and we have a small and independent revival for beer. You know, the small businesses have also gotten to present their wares, and it's great. Great beers out there today.
yeah, it's super exciting. So that now we're going to start with some like kind of hippie Buddhist Boulder style bow of respect. Excellent. And a brief moment of meditation, which is actually appropriate, I think, today, because being present and mindful is what cicerones do, or what the whole beer movement is about, is appreciating the beer, not just kind of throwing it back and listening to a bad dubstep or something.
Right. I think when you eat or drink, if you can get in the moment of now
Right.
and appreciate it, you're not just consuming it, it is becoming a part of you. If you are more mindful about that, that's all the better, and that's very important, actually.
Cool. So we'll begin if you care to. If you don't, do it anyway. No, but if you care to, you can take a good posture, can kind of root your butt if you're sitting, and kind of connect with the notion of ground. And then your legs can be down, or however, whatever's comfortable. And then take a good posture. Your head can connect with the heavens. That's the realm entrepreneurs are strong in. Ideas and vision and inspiration. Mission. A lot of great craft brewer entrepreneurs. So you connect with the earth, which is the realm of details and practicality. The heavens, which is the realm of our mission. And then out of mutual respect for Julia for being here today, could offer a bow. So one more little Buddhist fun thing for the road for everyone is a moment of meditation. So again, just good posture, grounded, upright but relaxed, and you can find your breath. There's nothing trippy about this. It's just connecting with the present moment, which is a really good moment. So just place your attention on your breath, in and out. If you've had a busy day, a great day, a bad day, an argument is in your head, a song is in your head, you're thinking about lunch or dinner, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, whatever you're thinking about, just notice that you're thinking and return your attention to the breath, in and out. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in how that meditation stuff, or mindfulness, which is a very ordinary human quality, connects with the whole kind of art of appreciating beer. So how do you, let's say I come to I go with you to a bar somewhere with a good craft brewers like Mountain Sun. I'm super into them. I know they don't bottle stuff that much, but how would you very simply introduce someone to how to appreciate a beer?
You go through the sensory side of things. So, yeah, beer's a product, it's sold, purchased, all that. The sensory side, what's in the glass? So pour it in a glass, appreciate what it looks like, take that in. There's ways to, pick that apart, look at the color, look at the carbonation, really that, the virtues of it visually, and then dive into the aromatic aspect, which can trigger memories.
So first you just look at it, you kind of feel the temperature or whatever.
Yep, there's a lot of that, sensation-wise too, temperature-wise. Yep.
And then you smell it?
Yeah, you connect with it. I call it beer whispering. If you can really, let that beer talk for you. If, noisy bar sometimes, you can either take it as seriously or not as you want. If you're not able to dial in, you're not able to dial in. But when you do have that conscious moment and chance, you're going to come away with a much deeper memory and appreciation of what you just intook.
But it doesn't have to be a big serious thing. I mean, people who love beer love the taste and love the smell, and right? I mean,
Right.
It's fun.
Right.
That's why I love it. It's like a fun mindfulness.
Absolutely. It can be like listening to music. Are you really consciously saying every lyric and hearing every instrument? Sometimes not. It's just in the background, but it's still enhancing the moment. You're getting more enjoyment out of it. And then sometimes you really are just like got your headphones on, closing your eyes, listening, picking and parsing apart every aspect of it, which I think builds more appreciation.
After this video, bars across America are going to be full of people mumbling and whispering at their beer in a different way, not just because they're...
In a good way.
Are we allowed to say shit-faced?
Well, we hope you don't go there. I mean, it's about savoring the flavor,
right.
Conscious appreciation. I'm 100 pounds and like a wet towel is my joke. Every sip counts.
What's the wet towel part? I don't get that.
A little extra weight on the wet towel.
Oh, I see. 100 pounds on a wet towel. Okay.
So it's important to me. I mean, I want flavor in every sip, and I can't drink a lot.
Right. That's what I love about the whole, like beer. So what's the origins, like founding fathers, all that, all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean,
so interesting.
Sure, and I'm not a beer historian. There's so many aspects. You take the topic of beer, and oh my gosh, what do you want to focus on?
Well, like all of America drank beer all the time back in like 1776.
Yeah, because it was safer than water,
right.
and we didn't understand these things yet. Beer was boiled. It was readily available. The culture and practice of brewing was brought over from England. And that's what got us
So if you were
hydration.
Thirsty, you pretty much drank beer. You didn't drink water because it might have like microbes or whatever in it.
Exactly.
It wasn't coming out of a faucet. I think about that all the time when I turn on my faucet at night because I'm thirsty and I just drink water. It's such a luxury. I don't have to go down to the creek.
It is.
Push the deer aside and like get in there and drink diseased water,
I totally agree. At the faucet, it's not to be taken for granted.
Right. So back in the day, they didn't have that, so they would just drink beer if they were thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bunch of the founding fathers were brewers. Right?
Absolutely. George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, all appreciated it. There's been resurrection of beverages or recipes from what they've made. Wow. George Washington loved porter.
I know he's lesser known, but Sam Adams, I mean, they should name a beer after
Maybe
him.
That'd be a great idea.
That'd be cool. It's just an idea I had.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like that. I just, a lot of insight. No, I used to live in Boston, and Sam Adams are they a craft brewer?
Yes, they are. So we have a very specific definition of what a craft brewer is. I mean, 2,800 breweries today, 99% of them qualify as what the Brewers Association, who I'm with, would say is a small and independent craft brewer. Small, less than 6 million barrels of beer a year production, and independently owned. No more than 25% ownership from another company that's not a craft brewer. Wow. And every industry is going to have their definitions, and ours is, I think pretty dang inclusive, with only about 1% of the breweries today not being considered craft.
And who are those?
Mostly, large global brewing companies. They're over 6 million barrels of beer a year. Just a completely different set of challenges in the marketplace and emphasis on what they would have as priorities. Large global breweries on one side of the rainbow, I call it the globalization of beer movement. They are marketing the same brand in many different countries.
Right.
Compared to, on the other end of the rainbow, I'd call it the localization of beer movement. You bring up Sam Adams, but in the same breath you said Boston, because Sam Adams is known as Boston. Or I could bring up on the West Coast, Sierra Nevada, who's also a very well-known craft brewer, and people think Chico, California,
right.
that have looked into the company.
Or we were talking about Anchor.
Yep, Anchor Steam for San Francisco. That was my first brewery tour. I loved it. Yeah, first brewery I ever toured.
They were very significant, right? Who are the sort of the modern founding fathers of the craft brewers movement?
Sure, great question, because it kind of dominoes towards where we are today. And in 1965, Fritz Maytag did resurrect Anchor Steam Brewing Company, which had been around since before Prohibition. And it took him a while, really, until the 70s to bring things online. So people do point to Anchor Steam as one of the heritage craft brewers that really got us thinking about more beer beyond the light American lager that was very well known. And then there's also New Albion Brewing Company, which was only a brewery that was 6 years in its existence. Jack McCullough, great man, he's still around today and does make some brewing community appearances, and he inspired many.
So it went out of business, or?
It did. It was kind of, in a way, before its time, super small. I've seen a picture of the shed that he started in.
Wow.
You know, just that small nano brewery style of approach to market, and I just think business-wise he caught on mentally, but couldn't get traction to keep the doors open.
Yeah. So so many questions. So and then, you know, your boss, is he your boss, or the founder, Charlie? He was like, what was his role in this whole thing?
The amazing Charlie Papazian. Charlie is the founder of Great American Beer Festival and the American Homebrewers Association, which then evolved into the Brewers Association. So Charlie is a homebrewer and a teacher and a leader, and really wrote a book that's kind of the homebrewing Bible, The Complete Joy of Homebrewing. And if anybody's a homebrewer that's listening, you know, they might have a copy of that book in their shelf. It's turned so many people on to the art and the hobby of homebrewing, and the association today is very much dedicated to that hobby.
I love it. So, you know, in college or with like the big beer manufacturers, beer tends to be about kind of like having something in your hand, having something to do, being at a party, you know, throwing stuff in your beer. It's not really about taste. It's not really about appreciation. But the craft brewers thing is almost the opposite. It's like all these weird ingredients and fun tastes. I don't know where I'm going with it, but
well,
it's
you
so
trigger a
interesting to
lot.
me.
I mean, what you're saying triggers a lot. And can we talk big picture?
Please.
I mean, the beverage of beer should be taken seriously and consciously considered. 1.6% of the gross domestic product in this country is contributed from the beverage of beer. And the beverage of beer usurps and has more reach than wine or spirits basically combined as fermented beverages. So you've got such an influential beverage. I love to say, you know, the United States is a beer-loving nation first and foremost. So why not think about it? Why not get cerebral about it? Why not peel away at the layers of it and really figure out, you know, how can we have small businesses succeed at producing this as well as these large global brewing companies? And how can we have people appreciate it in a manner, because it does contain alcohol, that literally just enhances the food arts world and doesn't take away from it? So I think consciously what you triggered to me to represent the entire beverage of beer, never mind representing the small brewers that are finally starting to have successes, is that, yay, we should applaud ourselves that we are now finally in the United States the #1 destination for beer, with more brands and more breweries than any other place. And, you know, pre-1980s, we weren't. And so it's a beautiful movement that's going on, and just, you know, one little part of the trail of where people, I think, are getting more conscious-minded about what they consume.
So we have some infographic, I think, on the blog that's about you appearing on Walk the Talk Show, and it shows that craft brewing was kind of, you know, everywhere and huge in American history, but then kind of started dying out, and its nadir or lowest point was 1980 or something like that. What, we talked a little bit about this before, what helped reverse that trend? I mean, obviously Charlie Papazian, 99%, he did everything. I'm kidding.
Well, Charlie P is pretty amazing,
Yeah, no,
and Great American Beer Festival started in the early '80s to give, you know, a quality competition, because there's also competition tied to it, to the brewers that were in the marketplace. So they thought quality and entered that competition.
Sounds like a movie should be made about that. It sounds like such a fun festival.
Well, there's been a lot of like beery movies made for sure.
Oh.
I'm sure you could Hollywood it up, but
Right.
you know,
Vince Vaughn and, you know.
Then, you know, I don't know what gets lost maybe, but it'd be cool to see. I'd go
Right.
watch it. But back to 1980,
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Carter in 1978 made it legal to homebrew up to 200 gallons per family household.
So why was it ever illegal? I mean, how did that happen?
It's a great question, and on the books, I believe it was legal to brew wine, but beer was somehow not in the mix. It's still illegal to, you know, you can't distill spirits in your garage, or you know,
can't?
no, you may
'Cause
not.
that's what I've been, you know. I wouldn't call it good, but it works.
Well, yeah, it's not always smooth when you do that. So now it is legal, and that pinpoint of 1978, and then Great American Beer Festival in the early 1980s, and the complete joy of homebrewing, and then New Albion and Anchor Steam and Sierra Nevada and FX Matt, you know, on the East Coast, and, you know, Yinling, and you've got, you know, Spotsville in Texas, and you've got all these breweries just everywhere.
Are you leaving people out? Are they going to be offended?
It's a tough one, but like you've got different geographies in the U.S. of the regions having their, what I call their emerging beer moments, and that helped, spread this thing like wildfire.
So Jimmy Carter, father of the modern beer movement, and then
you called him Godfather earlier.
Godfather, yeah, and then well, because he kind of came down with a wand and blessed it, like in the Disney movie, but a guy who's a president. And then, but it really took off. It feels like, just from an outsider's perspective, like New Belgium, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. When did it start? Kind of. I feel like now it's like in Boulder, it's like yoga studio, cafe, new beer company, yoga studio, that kind
I love it. Yeah.
Weird Tibetan shop.
It's Boulder.
Bike shop.
Gotta love Boulder. People's Republic.
Yeah.
You would...
Pot shop, what am I saying? Sorry.
Let's, a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, on average for the last 10 years, so each year, the craft brewing segment, those 99% of 2,800 breweries, has grown 10.9%. Each year off a larger and larger base. So that's where I think the last 10 years, this cultural shift in beer, literally the way we look as adult Americans as the beverage, we now think not just mass domestic lagers that are marketed in multiple countries. We also think flavorful beer from small and independent producers. Yeah. And last 10 years, I think that's really where it started to pop.
And why did it? Is there some reason it started popping like 10 years ago?
I like to say multiple things happened all at once to carry the day, and you also had a challenged economy. Last 5 years has been very challenged. People were making decisions, conscious-minded, where they spent their money, and there was the recession word was mentioned, and there were things that I think culturally people were worried about spending. We're starting to spend again a little bit. The reason I bring that up is because craft beer is often more expensive than beer.
So wouldn't the recession have hurt it?
It should have. Yeah. But what it proved is that it's an affordable luxury, and it was of value to people because it continued to grow despite those challenged economic times.
Same thing with yoga. Yoga is expensive. You would expect it to be a kind of luxury people would cut, but in a time of recession or stress, you want to go to yoga class more, and then you want to go drink good beer afterward. It's pretty good. That's like the Boulder lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a great way to go.
So is there any notion that, looking into the what is it, the glass ball or something?
The crystal ball?
Crystal ball, thank you. I need more coffee,
right
I guess.
There.
But yeah, the crystal ball, like, is there some notion that it's a bubble, or is it just going to keep...
Sure, that does get asked often, and I say that's like asking the National Restaurant Association, should another restaurant open up down the street? And my answer, representing the Brewers Association, is
no.
Of course they should.
Doing it.
A brewery should open as long as you can differentiate yourself and make world-class quality product. So sure. And take, for example, we haven't even reached today, frankly, with the 2,800 breweries, how many breweries we had in the mid-1800s in the U.S. So a good little statistic throw your way.
And there were way less people in the 1800s.
Bam. So if we had as many, he's got it. If we had as many breweries today, based on populations of the 1870s, we could support 10,700 breweries.
But everyone would be drinking all day long, every day.
This is, you shouldn't choose that route. Let's be positive about it. And it's just part of their food world and their, So yes, I get the joke, but possibly.
No, I wasn't even joking. They were drinking it, it was a practical. Like if you went on a hike probably back in the day, I don't know if people hiked for pleasure then, but they would take beer. I think they hiked just to like find a deer to eat for dinner.
They must have had to. And yeah, because water was an issue and beer was boiled. Right. And so that was, helpful to drink beer. It was safe.
So what are your favorite, I know you probably get asked a question that you will never answer, but what are your favorite kinds of beer and aspects of beers that you look for?
I love that question. I love the way you asked it, too. Because I do get asked what's your favorite.
Well, like, is it independent? Like, for me, when I become loyal to a brand, it's usually because it's independent, it's ethical, they're using organic quality ingredients that are good for me and, my friends or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yep, and there is criteria we each apply. I love being conscious of who owns the products, if I can, get that information easily. On the specific question of what kind of beers, beer styles, I love, ales and lagers. Love the beer in my hand is the joke and the answer, because there's so many different ones to try. I'll love, and ESB, extra special bitter, is a great one. If I homebrew, I brewed an IPA recently. Last year brewed an ESB. Want to brew a Bock beer. So I like beers that I can experiment with, not just once it's done in the glass, but also what it's going to pair with. And
pair with
food.
you sound like you're talking about wine. It's such an interesting cultural shift for my mind right now. So so if you're cooking for your family, what's something you would pair with what kind of dish?
Yeah, and I have an 8-year-old and 11-year-old. They're not very broad in their food horizons.
I think they're a little young to be drinking that much.
They are, so we skip that part.
Right.
But my joke to my husband is God, our diets have changed since we popped out children, because we don't get to experiment as much. But when I do grilling, grilled, roasted, smoked meats, those charred flavors, those blackened flavors, those dry rub flavors with those sauces, all fall into the same characteristic of flavors that is in malted barley. And that's what's fermented for beer. So malted barley is put through a kilning process that advances the flavors from wheat flour flavors, and will get it up to more biscuit or graham cracker flavors. You apply more heat, and then you go higher you go to toast. We can try some. You go to toasted flavors, and then you work your way up to really chocolate flavors, more acrid flavors like coffee. So the sensory side of beer.
I want an iPhone app of you just describing beers that I could go to sleep to.
I love it. You can get poetic and romantic about it, or not take it too seriously. But when you do, like I said,
both.
It's enjoyable.
I love that. I want to learn how to talk all that stuff, and then
and then not take
dating life.
Oh, good one.
Just talk about beer.
Impress the ladies.
Oh yeah.
The right ladies.
Oh. Well, if you're drinking beer, it doesn't matter if they're right or it could be anyone.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a joke.
I know, I can tell.
Mom.
I can tell.
So shall we sample some?
Sure. Are we going to work our way through all of them?
Sure.
Do you want to start with the hop shoots or end with the hop shoots?
I'm 185 pounds in a wet towel. So.
See, now you're going to use my joke.
Bring it on.
Hop shoots or no hop shoots?
I don't know what those are. So hops, we all know what hops are.
So the agricultural products that go into beer also have incredible value.
I'm holding up this jar for SoundCloud people who can't see.
Yes. And they should be aware that there's something called hop asparagus in that jar that's basically like pickled cucumbers, which are our pickles or gherkins, but instead hop shoots less than 6 inches tall, right when they come up in the spring, are lopped off and pickled, and it's like little baby asparagus. Pretty fun.
Yeah, so what do? You eat it?
Yeah.
Should I open it?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Good thing I could open it. That'd be
He's now opened the jar.
Oh, good.
Want me to hold it for you so you can do it? You're doing all the work.
Julia is now holding the jar.
And it might drip a little.
Should I serve you one?
No, that'd be silly. You go.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be silly.
Different tastes for everyone, but these are unique. I got these at Smutty Nose Brewery too, in New Hampshire, which was fun.
We're now eating them and expressing pleasure.
Yeah. That bright, acidity, which is why we all came to know an attribute from wine.
Super good.
So that's packed in basically vinegar, right?
Super
Very
good.
acidic.
So you eat that with beer, or do you just eat that whenever?
You eat that whenever. You put it on a side plate. The acidity from those hop shoots, though, could cut through salt in your corned beef, like if you had corned beef next to it.
Right.
So acid, salt. That's a great one.
Cool.
So your eyes are watering.
What if you're like a boring? I love it. I eat a lot of vinegary stuff and
pickle
stuff. I'm just crying. I'm so moved.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
okay, good.
I love this. So should we try beer?
Yeah. So let's go with the Full Sail Black Session. Super fun one. Loved a chunky stout bottle. I'm going to open this.
Yeah, great bottle. I love this bottle.
Yeah. And this beer, why I wanted to present it, is a lot of people are scared of dark beers, right? We have come to think maybe.
Why are people scared of it? Because it's heavier?
They
you want
think,
me to
yeah,
open
it's
that
hard
for
to
you?
talk and open
Little lady.
at the same time.
Allow me. I've been working out.
On craftbeer.com, we have a whole video dedicated
like
to not being afraid of the dark. Dark beers do not mean caloric content. They do not mean heavy. You have it upside down.
I know, but it's easier angle-wise.
Well, you did it. I couldn't do it, so I shouldn't talk.
I was going to do it with my teeth, but they get mad at me when I do that.
That would hurt. So anyway, what a darker beer will indicate.
Do you want to pour it? Because I bet there's some fancy way to pour it.
Well,
Sorry, there's water.
You can pour it down the side, 45-degree angle,
Right.
and then about 2/3 of the way up, you're going to go like that, and that'll give you a nice collar of foam.
Oh.
That enhances aromatics as well. It expels.
See, I didn't know that. I'm glad you did that.
And
so I was trying to reduce the head, but I don't give a little head.
It's all choice. Here we go.
That wasn't intentional. Sorry. Yeah.
It's all choice, but you consuming more carbonation is not my name of the game. I like it to expel out, and I get a sense of what it smells like more.
So I kind of messed it up, but you just pour it so that a little head happens
45-degree angle, and then straight down the middle. Yep.
And you want a little head so that you get this more smell.
Yep. They volatilize out. What's in this glass is coming up through the CO2.
So I just went to drink it, but you're already
I'm smelling. I haven't drank it yet. I forgot the toast.
Yeah, we should have had the little spin it around.
Sticking his tongue out, thinking heavy. Yeah, spinning it around. People will spin wine because it blows off tannins, unless it's barrel aged. You know, there is some tannins in hops, but not enough. You don't have to swirl your glass to blow off the tannins. You swirl your glass to get that carbonation to expel. Mm-hmm. And then once you do that, you get a better hit.
So basically, we just poured the beer in at the 45-degree angle, so there's no head at the end. We just poured it straight in, so there's a little head, so you have better smell, aromatic, whatever.
Yep.
And then you can spin it around, as you were saying, a little bit.
Yep. And then
stick your nose in.
Try and guess what you're smelling. Not a big sense of hop characteristic. I get more malt in this.
Can I say? Oh, you ruined it. I don't know any terms, so I just wanted
beginner's mind.
No,
you need to have you practice. Pull out.
I was going to say like molasses.
Molasses, great one. And not molasses in heavy, dense sweet, because you really can't smell sweet, but the characteristics of molasses, a darkened sugar aroma.
Right.
That's great. Good job.
That's all I got.
That's all he's got. All right, taste it. You'll
it smells really good.
And does it smell? And
Cheers
just a low level
Julia
alcohol.
Herz and the craft brewers.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.
I did not get a lot of alcohol in the nose, and also it's very light in the taste.
You don't get alcohol in the nose?
Meaning when we were smelling it, sometimes if it's higher alcohol, over 6-7% alcohol, it'll start to tickle your nose. Mm. That's why, you know, you have a big mixed drink, you know, you're not going to nose that. You can nose beer.
So nose doesn't mean smell, it just means you're feeling the alcohol up there?
Yeah, it's a sensory type of thing. And by the way, you know, of 50 some odd styles on our website, craftbeer.com, we did an analysis, and the average beer style we list has 5.9% alcohol. Which is good to know.
And some have a lot more.
Some have a lot more. Some
like
have
everything
even
at
a little
Mountain
less.
Sun gets you drunk just being around it.
Mountain Sun's great. Great brew pub in Boulder. Mm-hmm. So very sessionable. I mean, the point of this beer, obviously, session. Black, a little bit. I mean, there is so little essence of, you know, roasted malt or anything from those dark characteristics in this beer. They also do not a black version. But I do think the malt flavors shine through.
Yeah, that's great.
This, little low-level toffee maybe.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about the aluminum and glass thing at some point. But should we try one more?
Yes, let's get, and I'll keep zip.
Oh, what do we do with this?
We pour it in. Let's pour it into here.
Kind of want to drink it.
You can.
So good. I love that. I don't usually like the. What style is that called?
It's session beer, but it's a black session beer. There's no style guidelines on it. It's out of the box.
Cool.
Gotta love it.
Love it.
Or a Schwartz beer.
I was going to say like stout or heavy.
Yeah, black lager.
And...
Black lager.
Okay.
But a little bit of a variant to it.
Do we need to wash these out? Is this like...
We don't need to worry about it too much.
All right.
We won't worry. So second beer.
By the end, we'll be like, what?
So we were just in Oregon with the session lager. Now we're going to New York, Utica, New York, a brewery that's over 100 years old. This is a 125-year-old recipe, actually, from Saranac Brewing Company. I'll take it over here. So this is an India Pale Ale, which is the #1 selling craft beer style.
I love it.
That's why I wanted to make sure we got you some. And
so if you have a lot of head like this, it's not a problem, right? That just means take longer smelling it kind of thing.
Yeah, that'll collapse pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, so now we're drinking the Saranac, as you mentioned, IPA. If you're on SoundCloud, get on YouTube so you can see it. Sorry, I didn't do my nails. I love it. And so this is a good time to start talking about it. So it's kind of a new development that craft brewers are in aluminum.
Right.
Why is that? Why is aluminum like this big move? I mean, why is that controversial?
Well, some people can look at it as controversial for sure, because there's such conviction between the experience of your beer and the package it's in. But with that, maybe 3% of the beer from today's craft brewers is canned. It's not as broad as you might think, but many of them, it's kind of a domino effect. Many craft brewers are starting to can for sure. And the advantages that many of those brewers would share with you is there's no light coming into that package. So hops in beer along with malt and yeast, but if you look at the hops, which is the flower from a vine, that can have a chemical reaction that will cause light struck or skunking, and it'll make the beer taste funky.
And that happens very quickly?
It can happen in seconds in the glass.
Wow.
That once you poured it, or if it's in clear glass, it can happen very, very quickly from sunlight.
So beer bottles should all be dark. That would be better.
The darkest beer bottles that are brown are the ones that prevent the most amount of light. They're not bulletproof, though, to that, but it is certainly in a case box, in a dark room for your bottles is the best way to go. And otherwise, cans do not need that type of thing.
On the other hand, glass is so clean, right? Taste-wise.
Yeah, I mean, there's people get into the sensory difference for sure and have noticed differences.
But I mean, you're like drinking out of aluminum.
Yes, you are. And
which has a kind of flavor to it. The glass doesn't really have flavor, right?
The aluminum will have a coating on the inside, and that's how it doesn't leach.
Right, but it has no coating on the top, probably.
No.
So, and that's what you're tasting. And what's the coating? The coating's bad too.
Well, first of all, on the taste, I would love to do a taste test with you, because some people will notice a difference and some won't. And real quick too, on the packaging itself, cans will be argued to be lighter, more transportable, they're less expensive to purchase, and craft brewers are putting more of their story on the can.
Right.
And the large brewers, frankly, sell more beer in cans than bottles. The can, because we're a beer-loving nation first and foremost, is the major package that people have gotten used to.
Yeah, so I researched about this because I'm like environmentalist boy, and I love that question.
Sure.
But first, so what are we appreciating here?
This is an India Pale Ale IPA, Legacy IPA.
So do you smell it again?
Well, I'm keeping my mouth shut this time. You tell me what you got.
Okay, cool.
Pressure's
on. I'm
here when you need me.
So I just swished it around. I will need you.
You can say swirled or you can say swished.
Swished.
Tomato.
Swirled is for wine drinkers. We swish over here. I like it. I'm not really. It's very light smell.
You getting herbal components at all?
Yeah, I would say herbal, or I was going to say flowery or something.
Yes, very good. So this is dry hopped. So they have added hops to this at the end of the brewing process, so the hops aren't exposed to heat, so you get a sense of the aromatics of the hops instead of just the bitterness from the hops, which come from boiling.
Right, it's not bitter.
Well, we haven't gotten to the taste. I haven't gotten to the taste yet. India Pale Ale should have some background.
Maybe the aftertaste is a little bitter.
But I love if you're getting herbal or floral. Those are the hops. Can go to citrusy, pine-like, American-style hops.
Very light smell compared with the other one for me.
Yeah. And then, medium-level bitterness that fades, and the malt sweetness kind of balances bitter, balances sweet. That's a whole other thing in interactions.
Yeah, I love bitter. So what do you prefer glass or aluminum? Probably not.
Nope. I don't. I prefer the glass in my hand. Whatever I have it in, most of the time if I have a glass around, I'll pour it in because, again, I'm ingesting less CO2 and I'm smelling more of what the beer is about.
That's cool. So what I read about the aluminum versus glass is it's pretty close. It's very kind of gray area. Environmentalism, one of the delights of it is there's so many different factors. But aluminum is obviously mined in an incredibly horrible way. Bauxite mines, they are devastating for the environment. That said, it's like 95% recycled and recyclable, where glass is not frequently recycled.
Okay.
But if glass isn't recycled, it's not toxic for the environment. And the liner of aluminum has BPA in it, which is bad for women and
at high levels, sure.
But we all have high levels because it's in everything. It's in your shampoo. It's in your, everything.
Yep.
Plastic. And there's all kinds of plastics that aren't BPA that are still bad. So that's a factor. It affects taste a little bit to some people, but not in a huge way. It is lighter, so it has fuel savings. but that's not significant according to some people, but it's a factor.
Yeah, it is a factor. You've done your research.
Yeah.
And you know what is interesting for beer? Keg or growler is ultimately a very viable way. Both are reused and recycled
Kegs
in different
great,
ways.
right?
Yeah, so those two packages are huge and hot. I mean, 30% of the craft beer that's sold is through draft, is through kegs at bars. So
that's cool.
That's a great factor.
That's a great point. So draft is like a win.
Yeah, draft is a win environmentally.
There's way less packaging.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Huh, that's
and then
cool.
The growler to the local tap room or brew pub, I am reusing that. I can use it as a vessel for other items, as long as you wash it properly. Be conscious of the fact that temperature changes can, make it have changes of the beverage inside. But growlers and kegs are a great way to go.
Cool. So what else should we talk about?
I don't know. You get this whole beverage.
So much.
I mean, what I would want people to know is the appreciation side, and that this is the most highly regulated of highly taxed industries. And so when these small businesses actually in the 80s and then got tracked into today survived and created that cultural shift in beer, it's not to be taken for granted. And it's now a trend, a solid, stable trend for the small brewer business. But yet, as it continues to have more breweries on the scene in the U.S., they continue to need patrons to be aware of these products and support them.
Yeah.
Or long term, it could go away. You have to have that groundswell of support and interest for these small businesses that are competing in heavily regulated marketplace. And it's more complicated than just I make a food product, I'm going to get it on the grocery store shelf.
Right. Because it's alcohol.
Yep.
Heavily taxed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for Elephant, that's a big deal. For our readership, we have 8.3 million readers at our peak, and we are always emphasizing what we call, and many people call, conscious consumerism. Mm-hmm. So if you have the choice to buy, some big corporate beer versus like a kind of family beer company, that's hopefully an easy choice.
Yeah.
It is a little more expensive, but you enjoy it a lot more, hopefully.
Right. It fits. Conscious appreciation is that same thing.
And New Belgium sponsored us for years. One thing I love about them and many others is they tend to be like super fun and into bicycles or into solar energy or into the environment or protecting rivers or all these like good local community causes, where Budweiser, it's not even American anymore, GMO wheat. We've done articles like half the big beer companies, it's all GMOs, if you care about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what the small brewers are doing, then my little line is that craft brewers use their craft beers as a cause for other causes. And so a lot of these businesses aren't just, I'm in business to get a paycheck and, keep my doors open. I'm in business to help change the world through the product that I produce. So, millions upon millions of dollars are contributed by the brewing industry, large and small, frankly, to charitable contributions and causes, everything from schools to, conservancy organizations and the like. So
I love that your job is to like talk about beer, which you clearly love.
Yes, I do.
Do a lot of like young people come up to you at the festival and say, you have a dream job, like, how do I do that? How did you do that? I
hear it a lot. I mean, you fall into something with intention usually. I feel like I got pretty lucky, but I work for the National Association that represents the majority of breweries in the U.S., and I don't just see it as talking about beer. I see our members as making the world a better place, and put beer on top of that. And I'm a foodie, and I really appreciate it. I love to judge beer, work with beer and cooking. Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. So
how did you get into what you do?
My brother had a beer can collection. Mm-hmm. And so before I was
old beer cans,
Breweriana, those open up the bottom and then keep the lid on the top. So keep this little thing that's on top of the can. Wow. So before I was 10 years old, my family would go on family outings to a place in Washington, D.C. called the Brickskeller. Every few months, this place has more than 500 beers. It's no longer in existence. But my parents would be talking about beer. I'd be looking at different packages of beer. They'd be having it over a meal. My brother was happy because he was getting beer cans, so everybody was happy. So it was early, happy family memory.
So you were born to be in beer.
Maybe. I could have gone another route, different beverage. I don't know. Whole different career.
Right. So maybe should we sample more? I mean, Oscar Blue,
Yeah.
they now have this huge, what do you call that? The growler or whatever?
This is the this package that we will also say, it's the Crowler. So
Crowler.
this is a growler of beer you might have seen from brew pubs, usually glass with a handle that you refill right at the faucet.
Right.
This is a can that is refilled at Oscar Blues. And I watched them fill this can for me, the Crowler, and they put the lid on after they fill it. And so it's a can being used as a growler.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
How do they put the top on it?
It seals. It's a spinner, and it literally seals, just as if you would on a mass, canning line.
Cool. And this is relatively new, right?
This is absolutely within the past year.
Yeah, and they were like instrumental in the whole like aluminum can movement, right, for craft brewers? Yeah,
so my little backyard brewery, I live in Lyons, Colorado, which, by the way, is a town that only has small and independent businesses, is where Oscar Blues started. And the brew pub there is where they decided in 1998 to try to can their craft beer because the large brewers have had so much success. And the rest is kind of history. Now many a brewer sees it as a viable option. It wasn't. You'd have to buy 200,000 can minimum. Small business could not afford that. Somehow they went for it, got it to happen. And now they have a second brewery that's opened up in North Carolina.
Wow.
They have expanded to Longmont. They have restaurants. So big, huge things going on. And I very much respect what the brewery is about, for sure.
Huh. So you just poured out of this huge can some Oscar Blues, the Crowler.
Yep.
And what kind of beer? We have the Vienna something?
So this is a Vienna lager with an experimental malt. So one movement with craft brewers getting in touch more with the source of the ingredients behind their beers is the malting and barley side of things. So there's several micro maltsters across the U.S. that are small business maltsters. They would take the barley that's harvested and kiln it or roast it, and then that's available now for brewers to use.
This one's yummy.
Good. Yeah, Vienna lager. So Colorado Malting Company malted the barley for this, and
I feel like I'm eating beer.
Oh, really?
It's so thick.
And it's only 5.7% alcohol, so it should be pretty medium in body.
This one's got a lot going on taste-wise.
Oh yes, absolutely. And this is definitely an older growler too, so Crowler. So things will age. If you're filled from the tap, you drink it quicker. This is definitely, advances. So one thing to be aware of is when you get fresh beer, drink it fresh.
But even if it's an aluminum can, it stays fresher? Because the light and all that?
If it's packaged off a line, it will have less oxygen ingress. They will protect the product straight from the faucet, whatever oxygen was usually in there. They'll inject it to try and push that out, but it's still not as viable, and it won't have as long shelf life as when it was canned off a line.
Interesting. And then maybe we can have the last one after, but we have some question from Shannon over here. Oh yeah, craft brewing in other countries. Other countries probably aren't very good at beer, right?
Well, and them's fighting
just
words
the US.
in a way.
No, I'm kidding.
I think it's so exciting to see craft beer as a term and a concept in emerging countries as well. I mean, you've got great brewing nations like Belgium, Germany, and England.
They're okay, yeah.
People travel there for beer.
They're new to the whole beer thing, but yeah.
I love your joke because you definitely are aware of the history that they.
Yeah, I mean Germany particularly I know about. But yeah,
and it's part of their heritage as well. But what's evolving now is an emerging scene of microbreweries and craft brewers in other countries. So in Belgium now, you have brewers that are inspired by the U.S. craft brewers and using more hops. They're dry hopping like we had in the Saranac. They're doing techniques that the U.S. So Old World taught the New World how to brew.
Yeah.
And then the New World now is teaching the Old World new tricks in beer, and it's super exciting because that's full circle, and that's a wonderful thing. We're we're able to teach other countries.
It's an exciting time for beer. So we have some specific question. What do you think about Spanish beer?
I haven't had many. I've had a few, but not many, and I think I'm starting to hear that there is some coming online, and it sounds like the laws need to help get up with the time so the small brewers can actually open their doors. So it sounds challenging there. But I've had a few and I like them.
But governments probably, even though we love to tax it and all that, I mean, probably it's so good for the economy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We just came back from Washington, D.C. The Brewers Association 2 weeks ago had, 100 plus craft brewers lobbying on the Hill for, keeping top of mind awareness for issues of concerns for small brewers. We visited state offices of 47 states from congressional offices. And, you have to be active to get your interests heard to the legislators.
So are you like the lobbyist for the beer community?
No, I am not. No, I'm not.
No, but
we at the
Brewers
association, we definitely lobby.
Represent, yeah.
Yep, we protect and we promote, so both sides.
And drink.
And sample.
So Rachel's boyfriend works for a brewer. Do you have any questions? Since you drink a lot more than me. She drinks a lot. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say
that I haven't asked.
How we can tie the mindfulness in with the drinking, with the meditation. Can we cover that?
Well, I think we just did that in appreciating the beer. I mean, that's what I love about it. I feel like the downsides of alcoholism, all that, are reduced by naturally appreciating and being really present with beer. It's the same thing with cigarettes or anything. If you're relating with something that's kind of powerful and has a negative side to it, if you're much more conscious and appreciative of it, you consume a lot less of it. So I feel great about the whole mindfulness and beer thing. Obviously, it's a lot better than cigarettes.
Well, and I like the way you verbalize it. You savor it more. And when you savor it more, you're consuming less, you're slowing down, you're intaking it.
And it's still fun. I mean, that's why I love the whole beer thing. It's like, it's fun mindfulness. The craft brewing thing, hopefully.
Yeah.
So maybe one final question, just because I did know New Belgium pretty well for a long time, they got huge. Are other craft brewers getting huge to a point where you ever have to kick them out?
I think it's a great question, and large and small are relative. Our small is less than 6 million barrels of beer a year. Take Anheuser-Busch InBev, they're a 100 million barrel brewery in the United States. Take Miller Coors, more than 60 million barrels. Take Sam Adams, just a little more than 2 million. So 6 million barrels of beer in the scheme of things is only about 3% of what would represent
Sam
today's
Adams
beer
is
market.
2 million?
Just about, yep.
And your max is 6?
Mm-hmm.
So Sam Adams is pretty huge in my mind, but they're still well within your definition.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's New Belgium?
They are less than 1 million.
Oh, really? Wow. So who are the very biggest craft brewers?
You have Sam Adams, Boston Lager for sure, then Sierra Nevada, and then New Belgium is third.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no one's really at that 6 million point.
No, it's just a quick cutoff as soon as you kind of get there.
And then maybe an addendum to that final question is, in the natural products community, all the great companies are always getting bought up by the baddies. So do you see that? Is that happening in the craft brewers world?
It happens, but not en masse. You've got the purchase of Goose Island, Kona, Woodmer, Pyramid, Magic Hat. These are great breweries that have been purchased by financial interests, including some from the large brewers. And so, what's cool is corporate beer has had to change its game. The large brewers are looking at the small brewers and taking cues now, and have procured a few to try and have more offerings that are more full flavored and have a local tie-in more. And that's not going to happen in mass. I think small brewers value their independence, and the ones the ones that do get purchased will have their own route, but they will certainly have more competitive advantages compared to the rest of the brewers.
Well, thank you so much, Julia Herz.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's a pleasure. I could talk for a long time. So follow us on youtube.com/Waylon H. Lewis, worst URL ever, as I like to say, and SoundCloud. Thank you so much, and thanks to the craft beer movement. It's awesome.
Thank you.